This is your instructional video over the semester review part 2. Number 20, write an equation of a line that is parallel and passes through the given point. So this is very similar to the instructional value that we did earlier. So this is my x and this is my y. So the first thing I need is I need a slope. So the slope is 2 over 5. And just like the previous instructional video, we talked about the parallel slope. So the parallel slope means the same slope. So it is also going to be 2 over 5. Alright, so now I need my equation. It's going to be y minus y1 equals m times the parentheses x minus x1. Alright, so now I'm ready to write the equation. Y minus, my x value is 10. And then I'm going to keep copying the problem down. And my slope is 2 over 5. So 2/5. Now I'm going to keep copying the problem down. And then x minus, and my y value here should have been 2. I apologize. And my x value here would be 10. Alright, so hopefully you caught my mistake. So the final answer is y minus 2 equals 2/5 times the quantity of x minus 10. Problem number 21, I want to write the equation in point slope form for the line through the given point. So just like in the previous example, this is my x, this is my y, and here is my slope. So the equation that I need is y minus y1 equals m, which is the slope, times the quantity of x minus x1. Alright, so now I'm going to keep y minus, now careful here, the y is actually -9, so it's -9, but remember we don't write it like this in high school. We change it to a plus sign. And then now equals my slope, which is 3/4. And then now I'm going to copy the rest of the problem down, which is times the quantity of x minus, and my x value is -1. But be careful, we don't write it like this in high school. Two negatives become a positive. So now my final answer is y plus 9 equals 3/4 times the quantity of x plus 1. For problem number 2, we're going to tell whether the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Alright, so the first thing I want to look for is the slope. So in this top example, my slope is 1/3. Unfortunately, in the bottom example, it's not that obvious. So what I'm going to need to do is use my Algebra 1 skills to solve for y. So I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. So I'm left now with 4y. Now remember, in high school we like to put the x first, minus 16. And then now I'm going to divide everything by 4. So now my equation is going to be y equals -3x minus 4. Now here, my slope is -3. So let's talk about the difference between these vocabulary words. Remember in the previous instructional video, we talked about parallel slope being the same. So are these two slopes the same? No, so it's not going to be parallel. So let's talk about what perpendicular means. Perpendicular means it's going to be the opposite. So the signs are going to be the same. So if it was positive, then the other one's negative. Oh, and look, we have a positive and a negative. And we also have a reciprocal. Alright, so the reciprocal means a flip. So the flip of 1/3 is 3/1. So this is going to be perpendicular. Alright, so because the slopes are opposite because one's positive and the other one is negative, and it is also the reciprocal, which means it's a flip. So that means one of them is 1/3 and the other one is 3/1. All right, so the same thing's going to happen with number 23, except we're going to see if they're parallel. So the slope for the top one is -1/3. Now on the bottom one, I'm going to have to do a little bit more algebra. So now I'm going to need to add x to both sides. So remember, 11 doesn't have an x, so I'm just going to bring that down. So I have -3y equals x plus 11. And now I'm going to divide both sides by -3. So I'm going to divide everything by -3. So now my equation is going to be y equals -1/3 x minus 11/3. So in this case, my slope here is also -1/3. So the answer is yes, it is parallel. Because what do you notice about the slopes? That's right, the slopes are the same. They're both -1/3. Problem number 24, write an equation of a line that is perpendicular to the given line that passes through the point. So the first thing I know is this is my x, this is my y, and now I need to find my slope. So the slope is 2/3, but this time I need a perpendicular slope. So remember, this is the symbol in geometry. Perpendicular slope would be the opposite, which is now negative, and the reciprocal, which is now a flip. So now the equation that I need is point slope, so y minus y1 equals m times the quantity of x minus x1. All right, so then now I'm ready to fill it in. Y minus y1, which is 5, and then equals my slope, which is -3/2 times the quantity of x minus, now careful here, my x is -6, so remember we don't write it like this in high school, we make it a big plus sign. So my final equation is y minus 5 equals -3/2 times the quantity of x plus 6. All right, so in the next one, what is the equation of the line? So remember, in this, I need a slope and I need a y-intercept. I need to know how I move, and I need to know where I begin. So let's do the first one that is easier of the two, which is the y-intercept. The y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, which is here. So my y-intercept is at 0, 1. Okay, so let's talk about the slope. So let's find another dot that is easy to look at. So this is my first dot. Here's another dot here at the intersection. So I'm going to label this as point B. My y-intercept will be point A. So I'm going to put my pencil on point A, and I want to get to point B without going in a diagonal. So I'm going to go down 1, go down 2. So that's -2, and now I'm going to turn right. So that's going to be 1. So my slope is down 2 over 1. So the equation is going to be in the y equals mx plus b form. So my equation will be y equals, now my slope, which is -2 over 1, x, and then plus my b, which is +1. So my final equation is y equals -2x plus 1. Number 26, Kelly recorded how many presents she wrapped, which is P, based on how many hours she wrapped, which is H. Write an equation that best represents the relationship between P and H. Okay, so the first thing I need is I need a slope. Okay, so what I'm going to do is make my X chart and my Y chart, and I'm just going to pick the first two. So 1, 10, 2, 18. Now remember, Slope, I want the change of my direction, so I'm going to change my table. So now I have 10 minus 18 over 1 minus 2. So that's going to be negative 8 over negative 1, where it reduces down to just 8. So now I want to write an equation. So I'm going to use the equation y minus y1 equals the slope times the quantity of x minus x1. So that means I have my slope, but now I need a point, and it doesn't matter which point I'm going to pick. I'm just going to pick the first one, which is going to be easier. All right, so this is my x, this is my y. All right, so now I'm ready to fill in. Y minus my y1 will be 10, and then equals my slope, which we found is 8. Now times the quantity of x minus, and my x1 is 1. So my equation for this will be y minus 10 equals 8 times the quantity of x minus 1. All right, so problem number 27 says write the function rule, which is the same thing as what we just did. It's just not in a word problem. So the first thing we need to do is we need to first find the slope. So what I'm going to do is make my x chart and my y chart. So I'm going to pick the first two again, 2, 6, 3, 7. Now remember, slope means a change in my direction. So I'm going to change the way that my table is. And now I'm going to subtract. So this is negative 1 over negative 1, which is just positive 1. All right, so then now I'm going to use the formula y minus y1 equals m times the quantity of x minus x1. And so now I need a point. So I'm going to just use the first point since it's going to be the first one available, 2, 6. Remember, this is my x, this is my y. All right, so now I'm ready to plug it in. Y minus, and my y1 is 6, and then equals my slope, which is 1, and then x minus, and my x1 is 2. So my function rule is y minus 6 equals 1 times the quantity of x minus 2. In problem number 28, it's asking if the table below is linear. So remember, for a linear, this means it needs to be a line, a straight line, which means the slope has to be all the same. So remember, the slope, in order to be the same, it has to be y over x. All right, so let's talk about how I get there. So 5 to 0, I would subtract 5. 5 to minus 5, I would subtract 5. So at least the pattern on the right is minus 5. How do I get from negative 7 to negative 5? That's right, add 2. All right, so then now let's see if my slope is all the same. So now I'm going to go side to side. So remember, my slope is y over x. So it's going to be y over x, which is negative 5 over 2. So we're going to do that and see if it's all the same going down each column. And it sure does look that way. So when I go down, it all is negative 5 over 2. So yes, it is a linear function. So with that, we're going to look at number 29, and we're going to look at the effect of the linear function, which is f of x equals x, and what happens when I change it and I put 116 in front of it. Well, let's think about what this really means. This right here is my y equals mx plus b, but in the most simple form. In my most simple form, I have y equals mx, which means my m is my 1, so the invisible 1. So this is my most basic linear line. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 116 in front of it. So let's do a quick graph. Here's my x, here's my y. Now my most basic line is y equals x, so it looks like that. This is called the parent function. This is f of x equals x. This is a slope of 1, my invisible 1. Now what you're asking me to do is find another graph, but now I'm going to put 116 in front of the function. So what is that going to do to my line? You guessed it. It's going to make my line really steep, like that. So that means it's going to have a rotation and it's going to be steeper. So my best answer is answer choice B. The second line is much steeper, and you notice it rotated along the along the origin. For problems 30 and 31, we're going to find the equation that best suits the word problem. So in a video game, you earn 5 points for every jewel you find. You earn 2 points for every star that you find. Write a linear function that represents the number of jewels, which we're going to use as J, and S for stars when we earn 200 points. Alright, so let's take a look at which multiple choice answer best describes this. So we've highlighted 5 points for every jewel, which is J. So I know I need 5J. So I know answer choice A and B are out. And then I know my stars are 2 points, so that would be 2S, which answer choice C and D both have. But now it says, how much do I need to earn them? So that means I'm looking for a total. So the best answer choice would be answer choice D, because total means to add or to earn all of them up to 250. So my answer choice is D. Alright, on the second one, we're going to research the cost for renting a canoe, and we found a company that charges $12 to use the ship and $8 per hour, which we're going to use H to rent the canoe. How much would she spend if she kept it for 6 hours? Alright, so let's talk about what we see. So they talk about charging $12. So they're going to add whatever we have plus $12 for using their canoe. Now, $8 per hour means it's going to have 8 with the H in there. So I can look at my answer choices and know that B and D are not it. So then that means I'm left with A or C. So that means I'm going to look to see which one I'm going to have 8H, and I'm going to add $12 with that. So that means answer choice A would be the best answer choice.